optimize it, change it, right? And until you get to something that optimizes with people, use connections, use social media to connect with other people. How do you do that? Through engagement.
When you do regular storytelling, you don't necessarily have the right KPI to measure it. For example, if in the evening we just meet, we are talking, you don't necessarily have the KPI to measure whether that story is effective or not. But when you are in business storytelling, you have your KPI already set up. You know why you are telling this story, who you are telling it to, what are the elements you need to put in the story to get the person react the way you want it to react. So storytelling for business have key KPI that you will need to be able to measure whether that story is effective or not effective.
You said storytelling and narrative. Storytelling and narrative are more important to investment crowdfunding than the terms of the deal. It is imperative in order to get people to buy in to the story that you are telling, to buy in to this, to whatever it is about your business. Bill Huston, and I am an investment crowdfunding strategy consultant. I live in Louisville, Kentucky. Actually was born and raised about 100 miles northeast of here in the Cincinnati area. I've been in the crowdfunding space since about 2014. Before that, I worked in digital marketing. Crowdfunding was kind of a natural extension of the digital marketing that I've already been doing. To kind of tell a little story and background about how I got into this. My son and I had a company called H2 Communications. And what we did with H2 Communications was he was a videographer. He shot videos, and I would market them on Facebook and Twitter because those were like pretty much the only social media platforms that existed. And we did that for local businesses here in Louisville, Kentucky. He was in a program called CAP, Community Action Partnerships. That was a governmental program. And the director of CAP, her name was Rebecca Brenzel. She said there was a website called Kickstarter, and if you shot a really cool video, people would actually fund you. So we shot 7 videos on a Saturday afternoon. Rebecca put them up on Kickstarter, and we didn't raise any money at all. And the reason we didn't raise any money, and this is you can kind of tell my focus with crowdfunding now, is because we didn't build a crowd. Nobody had a crowd before we launched the campaign. And I always say that there's one fundamental rule in crowdfunding, no matter what type of crowdfunding you're doing. And that is that if you don't build an excited and engaged crowd, you won't get the funding that you're looking for. So what I work at really hard is the pre-launch phase. In investment crowdfunding, it's called testing the waters. And that's about building your own community. It's about how you make that slow conversion of social capital into financial capital. And I find that to be the key to crowdfunding. So investment crowdfunding became legal in the United States in 2016. Not much went on until about 2018. So in 2018, I had the opportunity to speak at an event in Los Angeles called the Crowd Invest Summit. And at that Crowd Invest Summit, I actually met a woman named Linda P. Smith, and she was the first Black woman to have a Reg CF platform, investment crowdfunding platform here in the United States. And I started working with her and consulting with her. And what really kind of flipped the switch for me with that was years before, we sold local food from Kentucky farmers into Louisville's West End community. In East Downtown. And as our business started to grow, we needed to access some capital to grow faster. So we were unable to access the capital. So fast forward to 2018, and there was a woman who I was working with as a consultant on the Buy the Block platform named Ina Jones, and she was from the South Side of Chicago. She was doing something very similar to what it was that my son and I were doing with our business with City Life Local Food. But the difference was investment crowdfunding was then legal. So Ms. Jones was able to go to her community, raise the capital that she needed in order to purchase the building and move that business forward. And for me, that was the real turning point because I saw in action, I saw a demonstration of how investment crowdfunding could change businesses, especially Black businesses that are really under resourced in the United States. And from that point forward, I started working on campaigns, consulting on campaigns after my work with By the Block. And one of the things that I noticed was that family and friends round was really hard for a lot of the Black entrepreneurs that I was working with. So I created the Crowd Fit program, and the Crowd Fit program is specifically targeted to helping minority founders actually raise that initial friends and family round and then move on. So when I look at investment crowdfunding, I look at it from the perspective of two campaigns. There's that first initial campaign, which is your inner circle, people that you know and the people that they know, where you get your campaign successful. And then the next phase is to begin reaching out to people who you don't necessarily know. And then the Crowd Fit program is it's kind of where the ball landed for me. I worked up to that point. I'd worked on 15 campaigns. 13 of them were successful. We raised over $1.5 million on those campaigns that I either managed or consulted. And what was really interesting about that CrowdFit program was it was actually picked up by Rutgers University, and I did an accelerator with Rutgers University. And one of the companies that came out of that accelerator actually raised $126,000 on the WeFunder platform. And about 8 to 10 months later, they raised another round of venture capital worth $500,000. So when there's theory and there's talking about things, and then there's actually putting things into practice and being able to show someone a demonstration of the work. And that's what I think is most important, is to be able to show people that it works.
Thank you so much, B. This is an important conversation. You see, you and I met yesterday. Was it yesterday? 2 days ago? Actually, in an event that was about the African diaspora and, of course, Africa trying to meet together to build something for ourselves. And this is something that we find very important, that the time has come for us to unite our strength and build something that we can be proud of. So this is the time for that kind of conversation today. Of course, we are talking about funding, and we're talking about raising funds for the project that you are going to build, because not everybody knows how to do that. So being able to leverage your expertise here is going to be very important. In fact, I have a couple of questions I'm going to be asking you to help us clarify, because people do have questions in their mind. That they do have a project they want to raise, but they don't know how to raise. They want to build, but they don't know how to raise money for this project. So yeah, your expertise is going to be very important for us and for our community. So thank you so much for the time. And you did say something that is important for us as African diaspora, which is community. And that really was striking for me, because you are talking of crowdfunding, but you're also talking about community. Now, how do you build a community, and how do you build a community that will support your funding so that at the end of the day, it can be successful? Can you share some tips with us? Of course, at the end of the conversation, we are always going to be talking about tips, your expertise, your experiences on how should we do things. So let's start with this: building community to help support your crowdfunding campaign. Help us.
So I'm going to give you an example of how you start building a strong community that is willing to support you and that is really excited and engaged with the work you're doing. And I'm going to say that Saturday we met on a call, and since Saturday, here we are Monday, and we're talking about how we can get capital and talent and experience from the diaspora back to the continent. And crowdfunding is very much the same thing. It's about the narrative that you tell that gets people to buy in. So you have to have that buy-in from people. You have to start that process with a dialogue and not a monologue. A lot of times when I work with founders, initially what they want to do is they want to tell you how great their business is. And maybe their business is great, but if you want me to invest in your business, what's in it for me? What's the benefit for me? What problem does your business solve? And when you start to center the investor or the customer in your narrative, that's when you start to really be able to build crowd and build community. And when you think about community, when you think about having a conversation, right, and not a monologue with someone, just telling them about your business, be open to listening, be willing to have those conversations back and forth with people. If you're working through social media, um, what you want to see is not so much likes as much as you want to see people who are commenting on your posts and on your information, and people who are sharing those things, thanking people for that. And when you thank people for sharing and commenting, always responding in a very timely manner, not being too salesy about what it is that you're doing. It's really important to understand that as human beings, so many times we think about what's in it for us. So if we start a dialogue, and that dialogue is about how we can help, right? How me as a person can participate in helping with the project, how I can potentially participate in making money. So it depends on what it is, that the reason that I'm investing, right? What is my motivation? So with this project, particularly, my motivation is in helping the continent, right? And not only the continent, but all people of African descent throughout the world. Because much my experience here in the Western world, in the United States, is that a lot of the same problems that impact the Black community, the African community, are the same, right? So here in the United States, access to capital is very difficult. When you look at the numbers from venture capital, you see that about 4.45% of venture capital goes to Black women founders, even though that is the fastest growing demographic of entrepreneurs. When you look at the total, less than 1% of venture capital goes to African American businesses, which, that's staggering, right? So that means that 99% is going somewhere else, right?
And where is it going? Where are all those funds going?
They're going to white men. 2% of venture capital goes to women and minorities, which in turn means that about 98% goes to white men, and not only white men, but it's very geographic, and it's very university driven. So people who go to those Ivy League universities, Harvard, MIT, in Boston, that Boston, New York corridor. People who live in Silicon Valley, they go to Stanford, Berkeley. That's where a lot of the capital is actually being deployed. And as that capital is being deployed there, that means everyone else is starving. So, I personally, I always wonder why people complain about that, because I say that the data is clear and consistent. So one of the things that I think needs to be done, and why crowdfunding and those regulations are so important, is because, like Miss Ina Jones today, I don't need to find someone who has $1 million. I can find 1 million people who have $1 to invest, right? And there are certainly 1 million people, right? And that to me is the power. The power is the community. And when you think about it, especially for small and medium-sized enterprises, a lot of times the people who are going to invest in your campaign are also going to be people who are your customers. And there's, for sure, if they've invested, are going to be your best brand ambassadors, because they have a financial benefit tied to the success of that business. So with investment crowdfunding, you kind of get a 3-for-1. You get an investor, a customer, and a brand ambassador. And that's how you begin to build community. But community is built around conversation and engagement, right? And being willing to listen to people. If you think about, like the big corporations, they bring in focus groups and they pay all this money for these focus groups. You have a focus group of investors, customers, and brand ambassadors who believe in your product. They believe in your product enough that they are paying you. They're investing in your business. And listen to them. Listen to, the input that they have. Maybe whatever your product is, Maybe they like it in green as well as black and red, or whatever the colors are. Listen to people, listen to their input. This is an opportunity to do real customer discovery, because these customers now actually have a financial benefit tied to the success of the company. And that's why community is so important, but not only for the investment dollars, but also because, the community is going to be brand ambassadors, they're going to be customers, but they're also going to be a focus group for you and your product to make your product better and faster. But you have to be willing and open to listening and dialoguing with people.
All right. And that is very important. And that seems to be at the centerpiece of what we do here, which is about storytelling. This is what we are doing today. You are talking and we are listening to you. You are sharing your story. And this is actually inspiring people. This is about inspiration. Now, I am looking at the ability to do the narrative, because you did mention of narrative before. So I'm trying to see now somebody that want to go into crowdfunding, because within the African diaspora, there are a lot of projects actually that are in place, that are in paper. Some of them are not able to translate into reality. So I am looking at what role or what impact would narrative, or would a better narrative or effective narrative make in being able to carry a project to fruition. Of course, in this case, we are looking at how people can buy into it, because there was something important that I want to say again that I said 3 days ago when we were in that conference, that we need to rely on the people. The people are the power, and I think that is really important. That, of course, is also at the center of what you are talking about here, by building a community. But now I'm looking at how do we shape a narrative so that people can buy into it. That is important for me. Share with me.
Absolutely. You said storytelling and narrative. Storytelling and narrative are more important to investment crowdfunding than the terms of the deal. It is imperative in order to get people to buy in to the story that you are telling, to buy in to this, to whatever it is about your business. It's important that you get people to buy in, and it's important that you not only frame a single narrative, but that you're able to segment those narratives and talk to people. What do I mean by that? So, for instance, there are going to be people who invest in a company because they're looking for the return. What is the return going to be? How much money am I going to make? So, those people are going to want to hear the story about the numbers, about the size of the addressable market. Where is this industry headed? Right? Those are going to be the people who are really drilling down into the numbers. Then there are going to be people who really believe in the cause. And, they're going to be willing to part with some of their money, right, to invest in this project, in this business. And what they're really looking for is a return. Everybody wants a return on their money. But the return is not the primary driver, the primary motivator of why I'm investing. The primary motivator is the social good, right? The social impact that this is going to make. And that social impact can be economic, right? I mean, it could be the creation of jobs in a particular neighborhood, in a particular community, right? That is a social impact, but it's also economic. Sustainability, environmental sustainability, those things are going to be really important. So it's important that when you start this crowd building process, that you really know and understand exactly who it is that you're talking to. One of the first things I always recommend is finding the perfect, or as close to perfect as you can, investor segmentation, investor persona. Who are the people that I'm going to be speaking to? Where do they consume content? How do they like to consume content? And what is the story that I am going to tell them? The beauty of this is that story is not written in stone, right? You're able to talk to people, see what resonates, and then make the adjustments, right? I am always talking about testing and optimizing. One of the beauties of the digital world, digital marketing specifically, is that everything is measurable. So I may have a guess at something initially, but once I put something out there and I test it, then I am going to know the numbers, because everything is measurable. And it's important to be flexible, in your messaging, in your narrative, how you tell the story. but make sure that the way you tell that story is responding, right? It's engaging with the communities. I'll tell you a really quick story. Campaign I worked on many years ago now. It was just a rewards crowdfunding campaign, and I took the campaign over from someone, and they had hired a team of people to do the social media. I don't know that they necessarily purchased the likes, but there were tons of likes, but there were no comments, and there were absolutely no shares of the content. So my suggestion was, let's not go live with this thing until we start getting real engagement, until people are excited about this and they're talking about this, and we understand this from a completely different perspective. People are super excited about this. That's when you know that you have something. And the thing about crowdfunding that I want to say right now, when we talk about that narrative, is finding that narrative could potentially take you time. Understanding that sometimes the crowd says no. Sometimes the crowd says not right now. No one wants to hear that. But sometimes the crowd says no, and you need to listen to them. And the benefit of listening to the crowd is it's going to save you time and it's going to save you money. Because if the crowd says no and there's no good market product fit, maybe it's time to pivot. And again, that's why it's really important to listen and dialogue with customers, to really understand that. But the narrative is super important, and that narrative needs to be segmented and specific to a particular group as you possibly can do that. And that's only going to come through testing and optimizing the messaging.
Testing and optimizing the messages. All right. I'm going to take that home. I like something you said before also, that, of course, coming from the marketing angle, you are boldly saying that everything can actually be measured. And that is very important for me. So share with us, what are your tips to measuring an effective crowdfunding campaign? What are your KPI? What do you use to measure if this is an effective campaign or not? How do we know?
So let me give you a few statistics, a few data points here. So when people hear about a campaign through social media, through what used to be called Twitter, but the X platform, about 3% of those people are going to convert into contributors or investors. If they hear about it through Facebook or Instagram, about 12% of those people are going to convert to either contributors or investors in your campaign. If people are nurtured through an email sequence, those people are going to convert at about 53% into backers, contributors, or investors. So that's where I start. I am looking at the email. I'm looking at my emails. My emails are absolutely vital. It's vital. Now, as we move more and more, and everyone has a phone, you can also do text messaging, right? But it's that one-to-one communication that is vital. So when I start looking at those numbers, I'm looking at my emails. I'm looking at the open rate. What is going to be the open rate of those emails? And if there's a link in there, how many people are clicking through and taking the next action that I ask them? For me, that is vital for any successful crowdfunding campaign. When I work with someone, the first thing we start with is looking at their immediate network. The people who they know, the people who are interested in them, who care about them. I always use this example about my cousin, who he's not really an investor, a sophisticated investor. He does have a little money. He's worked, for many, many years now. And he would invest in me, not so much because he cares about the return that he's going to get, but he would invest in me because of our relationship and the relationship that we have, right? He wants to see me succeed. He doesn't really need to know what the business is. He doesn't really need to know what it is that I'm doing. But if I'm doing it, the relationship that we have, he's going to invest in that. And I know that I can count on him to make an investment. So when you start thinking about going through that initial email list and phone list, you want to think about the people. What is their motivation? Because you know these people. These are people that you know. So you're going to look at their motivation. Is their motivation the money? Is their motivation, what it's doing for the community? Or is their motivation they just want to help you in the relationship that you have with them? And that's the first place that you begin to segment people as you reach out to them via email or text. The next thing that I see a lot, and I don't do that in the initial campaign. I make the initial campaign all about my inner circle, right? My primary and secondary networks. That's what that's all about. When you start to move into people that you don't know in that tertiary network of people, a lot of people say, "Oh, run Facebook ads, run Facebook ads." And my question is, what are you doing with the Facebook ads? And this is a question for the audience, for anyone who purchases products or services or investments today. How many times have someone hit you with a Facebook ad, and when you saw that ad, you pulled out your credit card to purchase, right? And that answer is none, or very, very few, right? So you need to nurture people. That's why it's important to get them onto the email list. And that's something else that I think is extremely important. And this is another place where you look at the KPIs and you look at the engagement, is content marketing, right? No one likes to be sold. So again, this goes back to that narrative and talking about it. It's all about that narrative. It's all about the narrative. No one wants you to constantly reach out to them and say, "Hey, invest in my campaign." Why should I invest in your campaign? That's what I need to be stressing to people. That my business is going to create jobs. My business is going to create wealth for people. It's going to bring something to a community that is not there now. Right. So some of the small businesses that you see that I actually talked about, that was a business that we had with City Life Local Food, and also Miss Ina Jones with Roots and Vines in Chicago, is food access, local food access, especially in Black communities in the United States, is they call them food deserts. So there are not a lot of healthy choices and options. So being able to get people to buy in to the healthy food, right? Being able to have people understand that healthy food, right, doesn't taste better, but healthy food is going to help you live a better life. It's going to help you live a longer life, right? So telling those stories, using content marketing. A lot of people don't like to do that. They just want to kind of tell the story about their business and how much they need your money and need to invest. But what we're doing here is we are building a community. So what I need to talk to people about is how they can be a part of this community, how they can buy into this community, not just financially, but how they can share the messaging, how they can share my emails, how they can share the blog posts, the videos with their network. So we continue to spread this message and really get the buy-in. I mentioned earlier about the brand ambassadors. And that is so important, because there are people that I know that you don't know, but they trust me. They may not know you, but if they trust me, they're going to trust my judgment, and they may invest in you. And that's how a crowdfunding campaign grows. And that's why that narrative is so important. It's so important that you know who you're talking to. And it's so important that you talk to them in their language, so they understand what it is that you're talking about, and what you're talking about resonates with them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the power of story help you to do this, because when you're talking story, you are bypassing all the blockade that the people already might have put out there. You are connecting them at the level of emotion. Then it becomes easy now for them to be able to buy into what you want to say to them, because like you said, you know who they are, and you know what makes sense to them. You know what will make them to react, and what will make them to react in a certain way too. And of course, these are not automatically clear to you as you are just beginning. They will get clear to you later on through experience and all of that. And talking of getting people to buy in, I'm sort of imagining that you want to tell them, you want to give them a promise. You want to let them know that there is something in for them. So my question is, how do you design an attractive offer so that people can buy into it, knowing that there is something that is going to be in for, then of course you're going to be able to deliver on that. But the question is, how do you design an attractive offer for a crowdfunding campaign?
That's a great question. I'm going to take a step back before we kind of get there and kind of give a little context on that, on what it really means to create that offer. The first, and again, the most important thing is finding the people who are interested in your offer, right? There's some level of interest in it. Maybe they're interested in you. Maybe they're interested in your business. Maybe they're interested in making money with your business. Whatever that is, that's the first step. It's important to find those people, to understand the kind of content those people want to consume, segment that content, and make sure that you are presenting that content, where they are, right? Those things are really important. Something that a lot of times we don't think about. You talked about that promise, that brand promise, right? What is my brand? My brand is the promise that I make to people. And this is one of the things that's really important, especially in investment crowdfunding, is if you're a startup per se. Now, if you're a business already operating, they pretty much trust that you're going to continue to operate the business. But even there, when people are investing, they're investing in you. They're investing in your team, right? Because your business plan is not going to be able to implement the plan, right? It's people, it's your team that are going to be able to implement that. One of the things that I've learned around the investment space is that you could have a C+ idea and you could have an A+ management team. They're going to make it happen. You could have an A+ idea and a C management team, and they're going to run it into the ground, right? So it's really important that, and you should be doing this for your business anyway, right? But it's important that you differentiate yourself as an authority in your space, as a thought leader in your space, that you really know this. You've done this before. You have some experience. You've done your research. You know your numbers. You know that there is a real problem that needs to be solved, and that you can articulate that problem in a way that is going to make people buy into it, right? So we're kind of back to the narrative. So I'll give you an example. I had spoken earlier about the lack of access to capital for women and minority businesses in the United States, right? Everybody knows that's a problem. No doubt about it. Some people spend all day complaining about why venture capital won't fund them. Then there are people who are in the crowdfunding space, right? And the way you have to talk about this and the language that you have to use when you talk about the crowdfunding campaign is it has to be solution based, right? So there's another solution. So if you want to spend your time and energy complaining to someone who has clearly and consistently demonstrated they are not interested in funding your business, you can do that. And I say more power to you. Have at it. Keep complaining. But then when you start to talk to people who are ready to take the action, they see the problem, and now you have presented a solution, right? And now you have to talk to those people. You have to guide them through that process. Again, that brings you back to the content marketing and understanding who it is that you're talking to, how they like to be talked to, and understand that the goal here is to bring them to the solution so that they have that aha moment and they say, oh, okay, this is what it is. And now I have an opportunity, right, to be a part of the opportunity that you're selling. I hear people say all the time, and I'll stop you like in your tracks when you're talking to me, is, I try to get people to give me money. I just, no, I don't want people to give me money. What I want people to do is invest in this opportunity to build something, right? To be a part of something that is bigger. That's what's important. And again, we keep coming back to narrative and framing, but it's just so important. I never recommend that any client talks about, this is why you should give to me. This is why you should contribute to me. No, let's talk about this, about the opportunity that I am presenting to you to be a part of something bigger, to be a part of a company that's going to fill the lack of venture funding, right? In minority communities. Well, however that story needs to be told, that is how you start to drill in on it. And again, you test and you optimize. You test and you optimize because everything is measurable.
I love that. I so much love that. If it can be measurable, then you can know whether it is working or not. There is something I often say about when we talk about storytelling for business in particular, is that when you do regular storytelling, you don't necessarily have the right KPI to measure it. For example, if in the evening we just meet, we are talking, you don't necessarily have the KPI to measure whether that story is effective or not. But when you are in business storytelling, you have your KPI already set up. That you know why you are telling this story, who you are telling it to, what are the elements you need to put in the story to get the person react the way you want it to react. So storytelling for business have key KPI that you would need to be able to measure whether that story is effective or not effective. But that storytelling regularly and that you tell your friend might not have those tools. So I really think that is very, very fundamental. It is clear that we have the possibility of able to measure whether our communication is effective. And because when you are doing communication in business, if it is not effective, you're not going to get something at the end of the day. So it is important to pay attention to all this. Now, what about the platform? Because I believe that maybe the platform are different, no? But how do you know the right platform for your crowdfunding campaign? Maybe you can share some example with us there, please.
Yes, absolutely. The crowdfunding platform is going to be very important. Now, so I'm going to talk about this from, kind of strictly, the United States, where I actually work in the regulation crowdfunding. So there are three platforms that are huge, that do like the overwhelming majority of the business. So if you're a small business and you come to the platform and you come to the industry, the first thing you may think is, I want to be on this platform because they raise the most dollars. I want to be on this platform because they have, a million investors who are searching for business opportunities, investment opportunities. So first, let me dispel the myth that second part is not true. There may be a million people who have invested on a particular platform, but they are not searching for your business per se. You are going to have to always bring your crowd. When I look at a platform, when I examine a platform, I examine it from the needs of the business. So there are platforms that are geared towards startup businesses. There are platforms that are more geared towards small businesses. They offer different terms. There are platforms that offer revenue shares. There are platforms that offer debt opportunities, which are going to be more likely for smaller local community businesses that are already in business and kind of thriving. Then there are going to be the larger platforms where people are looking for equity. They're going to provide you with a longer runway. And of course, they, on the other end of that, they are going to expect a much larger return over time. So, how much support does the platform provide for you pre-launch, before you launch the campaign? What does that look like? And really that's really my business. That's what I do, is I work with founders, I work with companies before they launch, before maybe they even know about crowdfunding and they want to learn about crowdfunding. And I'm able to work with them and analyze which type of crowdfunding is even the best for you. Do you have an idea, a concept that you want to be funded? And you need maybe a first run on some cases, then you probably should be doing rewards crowdfunding as opposed to doing an investment crowdfunding raise. If you're doing an investment crowdfunding raise, maybe you're a startup and you need a long runway, 3-5 years to get that business up and going. You have a little traction, but not enough traction to be profitable. So, you may need carry on rounds. You may need further rounds. So, when you take all those things into consideration, the business, where the business is, where the business wants to go, that's how you start to choose the platform that is going to best fit your needs. You don't look at the platform first because it's the biggest or it's the best. That's you have to look at it in a very specific way and see which platform is going to cater to your needs and where you are as a business. One of the things that I do, and we were developing an app to walk people through this entire process at Raiseway. I've actually been working with Raiseway for almost a year, kind of doing what it is that I do individually with people as a consultant, and moving that onto a platform where we can actually scale that process, right? Provide people with the same information. And the only time you might need to hire a consultant or someone like me would be for a specific question, right? As opposed to paying for a consultant and maybe not even using them a lot of the time. So, choosing the platform is very important, but it's important that you understand the underlying issues that the platform solves for each person, the support, the type of terms that they most regularly work with. So all of them will probably do any terms, but that they most regularly work with. And, and I think the number one thing is the support that they provide for you. That, especially if this is your first time raising capital, being on a platform where they're going to support you is going to be very important. Most important thing to say there is the amount that the platform charges you as well, right? So if you can get everything that you need met at a lower price, then you probably want to choose that platform because you keep more of the money you raise.
That's important. That's very, very important. Because we're talking about money, the money raised, no? But we need to know how it's going to be spent. Because if you're going to raise, $50,000 and you're going to keep 50% of that in the platform, then you're going to have to think properly. As a case, maybe you're going to raise 40 and you're going to be keeping 90% of that. So yeah, that is very important.
Yeah. Can I say something else here
real
quickly? Please. Because you brought up a point that is very important. When you shape that narrative and form that narrative, a lot of what's going to inform that narrative is going to be your budget, your use of funds, how you're going to use those funds, right? And when you talk to people about the funds, so it's one thing to say, I need $10 million. It's a whole nother thing to say, I need, of that $10 million, I need $500,000 to do this. I need another $500,000 to do that. I need $3 million to do this. So it's very important that you have a very detailed use of funds, and that from that use of funds, you're able to bring a lot of your narrative forward. That's really important because people want to know what it is you're going to do with their money. Because if you think of it from the other perspective, I'm asking someone to give me their money, and then I'm going to just tell them, trust me. Just trust me, right? No, they want to know what it is that you're going to do. So that definitely needs to be a part of the narrative, is how you're going to use the funds and the use of funds. Number one, it's required legally, but number two, it's important for your content marketing, so that especially as the campaign is going, and when you hit that $500,000 mark, being able to thank people and then tell them why you need the next $500,000, because you're going to be able to hit this milestone with the next $500,000.
Absolutely. That is fundamental. Very, very important. Now, talking about these, laying out the plan of what you want to do, explaining to the people, I'm sort of almost reading it in my head, which is the copy. How do you write the copy of the crowdfunding? Of course, that is where you're going to be telling the story then, because you are telling something to the people. Of course, not everybody is going to be hearing you talking all the time. They're going to read your page. So they're going to read your copy where you basically explain to them, this is what I'm going to do. This is point A, point B, then from point B to point C. Tell me about the strategy to write a good copy for crowdfunding. Of course, if that is part of what you do.
That is an excellent question. That is an excellent question. So again, I'm going to give a little context here. And that I talked about the pre-launch or testing the waters phase before you actually launch the campaign or are able to actually bring in funds. But a more important aspect of that is you can still change the campaign. So we're back to testing and optimizing. And you write your copy, you structure your copy based on who it is that you're talking to. If you're talking to people who are hardcore, professional investors, the only story they want to tell is how much profit they're going to make. That's it. They don't care how you make the profit. They just want that. when you're crafting that narrative and that copy, it is important that you be as accurate as you possibly can be with who it is you're talking to. You know, are most of the people investing in you, are they college educated? Are they tech savvy people? Right. So if you have a tech startup, and and you're talking to people who are not necessarily technical or don't have a technical background, you want to make sure that you break that down and explain it to them, right? When you go about approaching that copy. And again, when you're writing this copy, you always want to center the investor or the customer in this story. It is very important that you allow people in the copy to see themselves playing a role in that, right? Whether it's just the investor, whether it's the person who's carrying the message as a brand ambassador, whether they're an investor and a customer, it is really important. And I cannot stress this enough, that you actually put that person at the center, right? Because nobody wants to hear about what you're going to do. What they want to hear about is how you're going to do that with their help, especially in the crowdfunding space, right? Because again, crowdfunding is about community. Of course, you want the funds, but I like to call this the ROC, the ROC, the return on community. And that return on community is just as important as the capital that you're able to raise. So, when you think about the copy, when you think about how you write the copy in that narrative, it is really important that you, again, test and optimize, but that you are being direct with the people, that you're not talking above the people, you're not talking down to the people, but that you are talking to the people. That is very important. People need to be able to relate to what it is that you're saying. If you're not talking to a room of tech engineers, then don't use that kind of jargon. Tell the story in plain language so people can understand it.
I don't know if you also have to design the landing pages for crowdfunding. If there is anything that people need to pay attention to for their landing page to convert, because now people are landing on your crowdfunding page. There, of course, that is where you are sending the message to them. Depending on what you do there, you can either gain or lose. So I don't know if there are some tips you want to maybe recommend for people who want to design their crowdfunding page to make it convert better.
So from the copy perspective, I can not necessarily a designer. So I would say hire a designer. But from the copy, you want the page to have an enticing headline, something that's going to grab the attention of people, and then you want to have a couple of bullet points, and you want those bullet points to be what's going to resonate with that particular audience, right? If it's people who are interested in the financial return, then you want to talk about the industry, the market size, and a potential financial return. If it's people who are interested in sustainability, job creation, you want to make sure that those headlines, so you want a title that grabs people's attention. And then the next couple of points, you want to really make sure that they are going to be things that are going to be of interest to the people landing on your page. That's really, really important. And the other thing that I'll say is that if you can, always put a video on there, right? With video, it engages, every sense that you have, right? So you could be saying something and I could not be paying attention to it at all. But if you see my face, you see my facial expressions, right? You're able to gauge a level of emotion and passion about the founder and what it is that they're talking about. You definitely want to do that on the landing page. And if I could just skip forward just a second, the other thing that I want to say is it is important during a crowdfunding campaign that you have regular face-to-faces with people, right? In the world we live in today, it's going to be online, virtual, but it's important that you do that so people can see you, so they can look at your passion, they can gauge, the knowledge that you have of the business, the industry, the market. That's really important. If you have a lead investor, if you have someone who's invested, in your offer, in your campaign, it's important to have those people on there. And again, it is absolutely vital that you have a Q&A. No one wants to hear you talk for an hour, right? It is very important that you have dialogue with people. Let them answer questions. Let them know that you're human. If you don't know the answer, tell them you will find out and get back to them. And of course, find out and get back to them. But this is one of the things that I find to be the most important aspect of running a crowdfunding campaign is that face time, that face-to-face time, actually talking to people, letting them know you. Nothing about business online changes. Nothing about business changes, whether you're selling investments or whether it's you're selling a product. People do business that they know, like, and trust, and it's really important that you build that trust with people. And that's really what your brand is. A lot of times people think, oh, my brand is my logo. Well, your brand is that promise that you make to people, right? That you're going to bring quality to them each and every time.
And that is so true. It's not just the color, it's not just the logo, it's the promise that you made, it's who you represent in the world, no? that is so vital, what you said there. That is very important. All right, there's another thing that you also say. I think towards about the beginning of the video, you made mention of equity crowdfunding. I don't know if you want to expand on that a bit. What does that mean, equity crowdfunding?
Yeah, so basically, in 2012, the 2012 Jobs Act in the United States made what they termed equity crowdfunding legal. The better term, and the term I try to use today, is investment crowdfunding or regulated investment crowdfunding, because equity is going to be you selling common shares, preferred shares, selling a SAFE as a simple agreement for future equity, where you are actually getting a piece of the company as opposed to debt or some type of debt instrument. And it's very important that investors understand that. It's very important that you communicate with the investors, what it is. And this depends. We're talking about retail investors now, right? People who are not professional investors, people who may be investing anywhere from $100 to $2,500. So it's very important that you let them know exactly what it is that they are investing in, what their return is going to look like, and a timeline or a horizon of when that return is more likely. If it's a debt offering where there's just a debt instrument, a bond, then people know that monthly, quarterly, they're gonna get their money back. They're gonna get some of their money back, the percentage, right? With equity, and it's really important that you transmit this to people, is that if people are buying a piece of the company, then they are taking the risk with you over time. They're providing you with a runway, and you're saying that if you give me this money today, I am going to make that money grow 3 times, 5 times in 5 years or 7 years, right? That's the promise. That's the brand promise that you're making to them. Where if you're talking about debt, you may be saying to them, in 90 days, in 6 months, I'm going to start paying you back this debt at 8%, 10%, 12%, whatever that is. So it's really important that you are clear with your investors how you are going to return their dollars to them. Now, legally, you're not allowed to have forward-looking statements that are too forward-looking. It has to be based on data and not what you think it's going to be. Understanding the valuation of your company, and that could be a whole show within itself. What is your company really valued at today? How much is your company worth? So being able to transmit that information to your investors is going to be very important. And the reason it's going to be very important is so that they understand, or have a better understanding, if they don't fully understand, of what the company's valued at, how many shares they have, and what that's going to look like right in the future as the company grows and the pie gets bigger and bigger.
It's going to grow. That is what we are aiming for, though. All right. Now, let's talk about the budget, no? Because now you are telling people how much they are going to bring into the project to make it work. because of course you're not asking for $100. You're really sometimes in most of the cases asking for hundred of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars to raise a project. Then you want people to become partaker in it. You want to set the idea to them so that they can become, they can help you to carry the project on their shoulder. This way they can be fulfilled at the end of the day. So how should we pay attention to the budget that we are setting as? How do we set the budget for the project so that it is the right way and it can be, when people look at the project and the budget that we set for it, they know that, yeah, it is right, it is appropriate, it is valuable, it is worth their money. What do you have to say about that?
Oh, that's vital. It is very important that when you, as the founder of the entrepreneur, are looking at creating, that use of funds, what I do is I look at that from a very conservative perspective, right? I want $500,000, but I can make this work with $100,000. It's very important that you are realistic about the amount of dollars that you really need. If you really need $500,000, then $100,000 probably isn't going to do you any good. And you should be a little cautious about taking that money. So let me take a step back and explain that a little bit differently. So you have a minimum amount that you need to raise. And when you hit that minimum, then that money becomes yours, right? There are a few other processes in there. People have like one last chance to say that they don't want to invest their money. Once they kind of countersign the deal, then that money's yours. You can begin to draw that money down and use that to grow your business. So if you're raising $5 million, and I'll say this from an investor's perspective, if someone's raising $5 million and they set their minimum at $50,000, that's going to be a red flag for me. Because if you need $5 million to grow this business, what are you going to do with $50,000? And maybe you don't have much faith in your network, that you're going to be able to get you up to $100,000, $124,000. It's very important that you understand that. And from the entrepreneur's side, with regulation crowdfunding in the United States, there are tiers and levels to this. So you can raise up to $124,000 using regulation crowdfunding in the United States. And the financials only have to be signed off on by the CEO. If you raise over $500,000, then they have to be signed, that you have to have a third party review those financials. That could set you back $5,000. If you're going to raise over $1 million, then you have to have a full-blown audit. It could set you back $12,000 or $15,000. So what I suggest to people is that you never come out of the gate talking about raising $5 million. That you come out of the gate, you raise the 124. Now let me preface that in that most of the companies that I work with, they don't have a lot of capital that they're working with that they can use for marketing. So our primary goal is, number one, to get to that minimum. Number two, to get to that first maximum goal of 124. Then you have some money that you can pour back into marketing to reach the people that you don't know and to really grow that investor base, really, really wide. But being realistic with yourself, understanding how much money it is and how much it's really going to take for you to grow your business to the next level that you need to grow that at. Again, with investment crowdfunding, regulation crowdfunding in the United States, you can raise up to 365 days. So let's say, for instance, your maximum goal was 124. You can still raise $1 million that year, but what you're going to do is you're going to raise 124. And then either you're going to continue with your review financials and then continue to raise up to the $1 million, or of course you're going to hit the $500,000 mark, or you can take that money, invest it in the business, hit a milestone, and then come back to the campaign as long as you are within that 365-day period. So there are strategies that can be applied within the crowdfunding space. You don't have to come out and say, I'm going to hit a home run and raise $5 million right off the bat. The possibility of doing that in different chunks is certainly something that is possible. And you can also raise that not only every 365 days, but after the 365 days, you can open another campaign and you can raise again. So, that's a possibility also, right? So, you want to definitely make sure you hit your milestones, keep your investors informed, to keep that it's community. Again, don't look at them just as investors, but look at them as a community that's part of your business. Right? These people are part of your business, and look at them as such and respect them as such. That's something that's really important as well.
Thank you so much for that. And you did make mention of marketing just now, and that of course made me want to ask this question: what is the best way to market or advertise your campaign to the right audience? But of course, now you're going to have to market what you are doing to the people. Of course, marketing is about that, because if you don't talk, people don't know that they need to take action. So tell me about that: the right way or the best way to market your campaign, or even advertise it. Why don't advertise it to the target audience?
Yeah. So let's talk about the advertising part first. Again, I alluded to this a little earlier about the Facebook ads, right? With the Facebook ads, your real goal isn't to get someone to come to your campaign page and pull out their checkbook or their credit card because they saw a Facebook ad. The real goal is to get those people to convert onto an email list, right? To come to a landing page, read the content, watch the content on the landing page, and then say, you know what, I want to learn more about this opportunity. Where can I get more information? Again, this is where that content marketing is going to come in very handy, is that you are constantly telling new stories. You constantly have, new information and updates, for the crowdfunding campaign. So when you think about advertising and running ads, the goal of those ads should be to convert people to the email list. When you get people on that email list and you are nurturing those people, it's important that you understand that if someone gave you their email address, they are inviting you into their world. And it is important that you understand that and that you act accordingly, that you respect that you send people emails that are going to be informative and insightful. They're going to provide people with more information than they had before, and they're not all salesy. Now, there can be some sales language mixed up in there, but again, if people are on your email list and they're interested in what it is that you're doing, it's about the content and the content marketing, telling stories, telling behind the scenes stories, allowing people to know that you are human, that you make mistakes. Like sometimes telling the story around, your origin story, right? I went back and I told you all a little bit about my origin story, how I got into crowdfunding. Those things are interesting. Talking about what was the worst thing that happened to me, how I faced that, overcame that, and continued to move forward. All of those stories, all of those narratives are going to be really important, and you have to keep it lively. You have to keep it kind of upbeat, but interesting to people. Again, you're going to test and optimize everything, right? So you're going to know what resonates with people. When you find out what resonates with people, double down on that. When you find out what doesn't resonate with people, eliminate it. When you think about marketing, right? And this is the one thing I want to say about a crowdfunding campaign is kind of unlike your business that, that you're marketing on a horizon of, 2, 3, 5 years out. With a crowdfunding campaign, you have to do all these things, but you have to do them very, very quickly. So I'll say two things about that. Whether you're thinking about crowdfunding right now or not, you should be marketing. You should be presenting yourself as an authority and a thought leader in whatever space it is that you're in. And you should be telling stories. You should be doing content marketing, even if it's just about the industry and the problems in the industry, some solutions that you may not have, but you think might be solutions. Talk to people, start the conversation with people, and engage with people. That's what's going to be important. The other thing I want to say about crowdfunding is there's nothing that I'm going to ask you to do in a crowdfunding space that is going to be bad for your business, right? Marketing is good for your business. PR is good for your business. I used to call it, when I first started this process, I used to call it like blogger outreach. That was like before podcasters and big time influencers. But that is a very important aspect of what you do in the crowdfunding space as well. And the reason is, if I can get someone to endorse me who has a trust-based relationship with 5,000 people, with 10,000 people, and they're engaged with them, then that person trusting me to write about me on their blog, to have me on their podcast, to write an article about me, that is an endorsement of that person. And now there are at least 5,000-10,000 people who are taking a second look at me, taking a deeper look at me that I didn't know. And that is someone else's audience. So influencer marketing, although I'm always careful when I use that term influencer marketing, because, some people think, well, I got to go get this big influencer who's going to charge me $1 million. That's not necessarily true. It can be someone in your industry. And the most important thing that you want to look for in that industry, whether it's a podcaster, a blogger, a journalist, how many people are engaging with their content. That's what it is that you.
And that is really very interesting, because you don't want to, just because you're looking for influencer, and you don't want to look for whether I know, like you said, sometimes people can actually buy the likes, no? So you need to be careful who you are connecting with. Of course, you need to do your due diligence. You need to research. You need to know who are the people that you are even telling, help me to reach your audience, because if their audience are just bots now, then you are wasting your money, wasting your effort, wasting your time. So I really think that is very important. Now, what about the engagement? How do you engage with your backer, the people that are sponsoring you, that are putting their hard-earned money on your project? How should you engage with them? And of course, I think this is sort of related to what we were talking about before, which is the storytelling, the narrative. So tell me some strategy that people should adopt so that they can get results.
Yeah. So first, let me say that with regulation crowdfunding in the United States, if you successfully raise capital using Reg CF, by law, you have to engage with your investors. Now, that shouldn't be a law. If someone parted with their hard-earned money to invest in you and your team and, the business that you believe in, no one should have to tell you to communicate with them. But it is important that you keep people informed about the company, where the company's going, what the company's doing, whether that is good or bad. You need to be honest. You need to be transparent with them and communicate with them as often as you possibly can, without over communicating. Getting people on your email list, sending out at least a monthly investor update is going to be very, very important. And the other thing that I want you to remember here is that if you want to run another campaign, if you want to raise more funds, the best people to be able to go back to are the people who have already invested in your company, right? And the best way to do that is to deepen that relationship with them by communicating with them, by not taking the money and running, by hitting the milestones that you have set, that you promised them that you were going to hit, by, going back and comparing what it is you said you would be able to do with this money, what it is that you're able to do with this money, and telling them the truth all the time. They understand that you're human, right? And they want to know your hardships. They want to know the struggles that you've gone through. They want to know how you overcame those struggles. So when reporting to investors, it is paramount that you be transparent about what's going on with the company. And it's paramount that you do the best you can to hit your milestones. But that transparency is really important. People can be forgiving, of you not hitting a milestone, falling short, a failure. But what people are not going to be forgiven of, especially once you take their money, is you not being transparent and honest with them.
That should be fair enough. Now they have given you money. That is part of their bargain. That is their bargain. That is, they are respecting their part of the bargain. Now, you need to respect yours too. You made a promise. You say you were going to do something. At least a minimum of, you cannot be ingrate. So you need to appreciate the gesture that the people have done to you, believing in your project, but you need to live up to the expectation, because that is the promise that you made. So I really appreciate it this time, this sharing. B, thank you so much. Now, how can people?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now, how can people reach out to you, those who want to connect with you, learn more, and why not work with you? Please share with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity today. So if you go on LinkedIn, you'll find me there. I'm on LinkedIn on and off all day long. Definitely have the notifications turned on, so you can reach me at Bill Huston, Huston 1 on LinkedIn. You can reach me at Crowd-Max. That's my blog, and check out the Raiseway app, RAISEWAY.app. That is the new app that we just released to the market that actually walks you through this process of crowdfunding, investment crowdfunding. It walks you through the process step by step to allow you to successfully raise capital at the end of the project. And then you can you can reach me at my email address as well as again Bill Huston at crowd-max.com or Bill Huston at raiseway.app. Please reach out to me, connect with me on LinkedIn. Love to have conversations with people. And again, thank you so much for this opportunity.
It's been a pleasure here. All right, so this is the last one. What will be your final thought here? Of course, we'll look at different areas where people can be having challenges about crowdfunding. And you have been really very generous and good in explaining these different tips on how to be successful in crowdfunding. But what would be your final thought? Maybe it's something that you wanted to share, did they ask you, or just to sort of refresh the people or refresh their mind on how to approach crowdfunding. Please go ahead and share with us.
Yeah, so the thing I would say that is most important is after listening to this podcast today, start building your crowd. Whether you're going to crowdfund or not, start building your crowd. Identify the people who are going to buy your product or service. Identify the people who may become investors, brand ambassadors. Identify them. Reach out to them. Engage with them. Look for engagement. That is the most important aspect of your marketing, of your storytelling, of the narrative that you create. Is it resonating with people? If it's not resonating with people, optimize it, change it, right? And, until you get to something that optimizes with people, use connections, use social media to connect with other people. How do you do that? Through engagement. Share comments and share people's posts, and people will take note of you.
Thank you so much for that. And that is so true. Everything can be measured, particularly when you are in crowdfunding. So thank you so much for this sharing, Abi. It has been really, really great here. I appreciate it. I appreciate the tips that people, of course, are going to have advantage to learn from you. Thank you so much for it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.